Not me, but my wife. She was home alone as a teenager, except for her 5-year-old brother. They lived on the side of a hill in the middle of nowhere. She saw a strange man walk past her window. She hid with her little brother while he tried different doors and windows to see if any were unlocked. He kept looking in through different windows, so she kept having to take her brother into different parts of the house to stay unseen. Fortunately, her neighbor from down the road noticed the guy's truck near the house and yelled up the drive at him, and he took off. Another time, a couple years later, she was home alone again. It was Halloween and she was supposed to give out candy, except you'd have to be crazy to let your kids trick or treat on the winding back road they lived on. She was in her living room when she suddenly got the very strong sense that someone was watching her from the steps leading downstairs. She was terrified but thought she was just creeping herself out, until she saw all of their dogs were staring towards the same spot and cowering. She called them and they stayed behind her in the corner for a couple of hours till the feeling suddenly passed. Later, her little brother talked to her about his imaginary friend who lived in the closet under those stairs. He said he was mean to him sometimes and he didn't want to be near his closet after dark. She told me all this for the first time while I was house sitting with her for her mom. Super creepy, but I didn't see anything weird. This happened about 10 years ago. Sorry about the length. My parents had a dry cabin that was about 17 miles out of town. We decided to rent it to this family for a decent price. Long story short, they stopped paying their rent and we had to kick them out. This was about the time I was moving back to the area. So the parents decided I could stay at the cabin while going to school. When we checked out the cabin, it was fucked up. Trash all over the place, a gigantic pit of empty beer bottles, mold in the floorboards. Gonna be a ton of work to clean that up. So I start cleaning it up, little by little, day by day, over the course of the summer. Occasionally I'd get my friend to help out. It finally got to the point of cleanliness where I could sleep there at night. I kinda wish I didn't. I got off work at midnight and stayed at my friend's apartment for a couple of hours. It was 3:30 a.m. and I decided to head home and go to bed. I get back to the cabin at about 4 a.m. and pass out. I wake up at 8 a.m. wide awake. I don't hear a single thing outside. There's no birds chirping, there's no squirrels chattering, dead silence. I heard something growling outside the cabin. I could hear its footsteps circling the grounds. It went around the house 3 more times in a counterclockwise motion, pausing there, sniffing here, walking more. I could feel its presence and it was searching for something. I thought to myself, whatever it is, it's outside, it can't come in. The door's locked and the windows are all shut. Until it went to the porch by the front door. Its claws clackered onto the wooden porch, the growling got louder and louder. The door is locked, it can't come in. I move as quietly as possible from the bed and look at the alarm clock. 8:10 a.m. I slowly hide myself under the sheets, trying not to make a noise. The windows are shut. It claws at the door 3 times. Locked. Suddenly it's inside the house. There was no noise of a door opening or being broken into. This presence is inside my house, my sanctum of sleep. It paces the bare wooden floor at the edges of the living room. 3 times, sniffing here, stopping there, looking. It steps into the kitchen near the living room. 3 times it went around the kitchen. I'm on the 2nd floor, maybe it'll go back outside. It starts to walk up the stairs, creaking those old boards with its weight. The growling becoming louder and louder. The thing is in the room next to mine, pacing about 3 times. The 2nd floor is an open floor plan. There's half a wall separating my bedroom with the other room. The thing stops at the end of the half wall, the entrance to my room. It's snarling quietly at me. I could hear its menacing breathing. I could feel that it wants to enter the room, that it wants me to look from under my sheets and see its eyes. But I simply cower and dare not breathe audibly, like the shallow breaths you take when you're hiding and something is seeking you. I could feel its hackles raised in anger, and then it stops. It's gone, just vanishes. I laid under the sheets, still and silent, waiting for it to return, waiting for it to consume me. Nothing. Then, the silent songbirds start to chime in, tentatively at first, wondering if it's safe. More and more join. I never moved from under my sheets, and I spent the next 2 hours falling back asleep. I never slept another night in that place again. On one of my dad's week offs, he went to the cabin and helped me move stuff back into the trailer. I was moving back to Valdez and living with him. Fixing the cabin took too much money for me to go to school. While we were moving my bed from out of the bedroom at the cabin, he plainly said, "Oh, that sucks. They painted over the pentacle." The what? The guy that built the cabin, who you were named after, painting a pentacle to ward off evil spirits. They, the family, must have thought it was a pentagram. Ignorant fuckers. Not necessarily like shock frightening, but it was really disconcerting at the time. Well, it was about 12:30 or 1 a.m. and I was driving home from the movie theater. My friends and I had just watched The Conjuring, which put my mind in a creepiness-fueled, hyper-aware state. I was driving through downtown in my not small, not big town, and downtown is kind of like an old, historical-looking district. Usually, there was a large crowd of people outside of this one downtown bar called The Grove, but it was raining and drizzling. Even though it was raining, it was a Saturday night and I live in a part of Florida where people learn not to care about light rain, so I was a little surprised to see literally no one but this lone woman. I'm at this red light next to The Grove and I see this lone woman standing on the edge of the intersection that I'm stopped at. She's not moving, just standing there on the sidewalk to the right of me, staring about 45 degrees up into the sky in the direction that I'm currently headed. I look at her as the light changes to green and I drive past. I drive slowly, almost hoping for her to look down at me and make eye contact, because the way she is staring upward is confusingly discomforting. She doesn't look down at me though, she just keeps staring upward down the road that I'm driving on, so I pass her and just think to myself, that girl's freaking weird. Whatever, I hope she gets home okay, or something like that. I've driven down the road several blocks, still thinking about how weird the girl was. Then I see a man standing alone on the sidewalk to the left of the road I'm on, almost perfectly mirroring the girl. The man is standing completely still and staring up at a 45-degree angle into the sky, but he's looking directly in the direction of the girl. At the very least, the two were 4 blocks away from each other. There was literally no way that they could see each other, but they were both looking in the exact direction of each other, just up into the sky. What were they looking at? Why were they alone? Why were they not moving? I still haven't guessed a reason to any of these. What did I drive under? Recently, I got home from a late night at work and decided to walk my dog in the woods by my house. We get to a clearing and I start throwing sticks for him by moonlight when he stops and stares into the trees, growling softly. He's usually pretty courageous and I've seen him go charging after elk 3 times his size, but he legit looked scared. I hadn't planned on being gone long, so I left my flashlight at home and only had my phone, which was at 10% battery. We went back to playing with sticks, but then it happened again. Dog growls, and I heard some twigs snap. There have been cougar and mountain lion sightings in the area, and I'm starting to worry. So I decide, screw this, let's go. We took the long route around the snapping twigs when my phone died. Just then I hear something large moving in the bushes right by me, my dog growling his terrified growl again. I pull my knife out and tell him to run, and we bolt down the barely visible path, large creature moving in the woods near us, gaining on us steadily. As the parking lot comes into view, I see my dog come into the light, and we hear the forest beast's terrifying roar. "Hey man, did you find our weed?" Just then, a young man with a duffel bag and a Bob Marley hat emerged from another trailhead, heading for a small station wagon with dank smoke drifting out of all four windows. Turned out to be stoners visiting their forest drop point. Welcome to British Columbia. Really long. Sorry, hope it keeps you up. I was working the evening shift as a CNA at our nursing home. As a newbie, I generally got sent the more difficult clients. I got sent around 8 p.m. to feed an older lady in the advanced stages of Alzheimer's. I knew she'd be difficult, as most of the staff avoided her. She was in a private room with its own bathroom, so when I came in, I turned off the light in the bathroom and shut the door, which was pretty customary to me. Then I sat down on her bed and let the nurse's call button hang off. After about 5 minutes of me trying to coax her to eat, she breaks the silence by pointing at the bathroom door. "There's someone in there." I ignored her and kept trying to feed her. She kept pointing and insisting. Eventually I tried to reassure her that no one could be in there. I had checked. At that point her eyes glazed over and she dropped it. A couple minutes later, there was a knock at the hallway door. It was the RN in charge. "Is everything okay? Your bathroom call light has been going off for about 5 minutes. I switched to home health care shortly after. I threw a block party in college and invited the young folks in the neighborhood, all of whom I knew well. There were some acquaintances there too, but I had met them all before. About 2 hours in, we're all pretty chipper, and all of a sudden this random guy hops the fence and joins the party. Now this fence goes off into the forest, which is what he came out of, in the dark. Never said a word the whole time he was there. He just kind of lurked around the bonfire and stared into it occasionally. He was gone before the party died out completely. No one saw him go, but he wasn't around when people started walking home. I doused the fire after the last guest left and called the dog in. Right before I walked inside, a white disturbance in my visual field made me look out towards the fence. There he was, just standing among the trees looking at me. I got my rifle and fired a warning shot beside him. He slowly turned and walked off into the blackness, unfazed. I called the cops, but they never found anyone. I hate to ever repeat this, but I don't want you to sleep tonight, so I will. Let's keep this short. I had a child, and this child had some sort of ability to sense things. She was 3 at the time. She told me about a friend she made. The one she would always stare at on the ceiling. She said, "She jumped out of her parents' car through our window and wants spaghetti." Okay. Seemed like a friendly, invisible friend. I brushed it off, still amazed at all this though. Things got weird. It's almost as if this unlocked some sort of spiritual world. Weird things started happening. I'm so terrified even repeating this because I'm so paranoid it will find us again. We tried to move houses and it didn't help. One night I hear my daughter scream. Both me and my mother run into her room and she has her arms extended backwards as if she's being dragged out of bed. As we walked in, it slowly stopped. 85% of her body was now out of the bed. She was still lying down on her back. It was so unbelievable to witness this, and I feared for her. It started getting worse. I kept my daughter in bed with me now. I'm holding her close in my arms one night when she screams, and I half wake up to hear chanting. It was near my daughter, but it sounded like multiple voices and also in a different language. Latin, I believe. We got a priest in. We explained the chanting to him, and he said he thinks it was a saint for children, an archangel, Michael if I recall correctly. The house we lived in was old as fuck and sent off bad vibes. Although we got it blessed, I still wasn't happy. So my child and I moved into a brand new apartment near the city. We were really happy there, nothing happened and I felt really safe. There's a main bathroom at the end of the apartment, opposite is my daughter's room. Then there's a long hallway that leads to an open dining kitchen area and then the living room. I was applying some fake tan in bathroom with the door open one day, and my daughter was in the living room watching the Wiggles on the beanbag. I could often hear her moving around on it. I'm looking in the mirror which is parallel to the door while I apply my fake bake. I see a small shadow walk into my child's room out of my peripheral. I get annoyed. I told you to stay in the living room, I say as I walk into her room. Nothing. I look everywhere but find her still on the beanbag, almost asleep and watching TV still. Fuck, I thought I realized. It's not over yet. Not too much happened after that. One night I had a friend sleep over and she shared my bed with me. My daughter was away at this stage with grandma for the weekend. When I woke up, my friend was gone. I find her in my child's room. I ask her why she moved, but she was kind of hesitant to talk to me, almost like she was scared of me. Guys, I'm actually terrified writing this and I've had to turn my light on. I'm such a loser, but I feel a presence right now. Not sure if I'm just reliving the feelings I had then though. She told me that in the middle of the night I started talking in a foreign language. I do speak another language other than English, but she insisted it wasn't even close to that one. So she had to leave the room because she was really scared. Also one night, there was knocking on my bedroom window. Also almost in the cupboard in my room. The first time it happened I thought I misheard, but the second time my daughter looked at me and said, "Who is that?" Also please note that my bedroom overlooked a balcony about 5 stories high. A few other separate things have happened to me as a child. I don't want to discuss them though. One of my favorites though, and this one doesn't scare me at all, it makes me quite happy. About a year ago, my dad was admitted to the hospital and he was really sick. All the doctors gave us the "we're sorry but there's nothing we can do" chat. This lasted for months. Towards the end, I stopped coming to visit him as often as I usually would because I kind of believed he would pull through as he did a few weeks before. He was kind of in an unconscious state, but one day he just woke up all energetic and he got sent home. Sadly, a few months later, he was readmitted for the last time. I still kept my phone on loud just in case my mom tried to contact me. She stayed at the hospital with him the entire time. One evening, I visited him and stayed till about midnight. I laid with him and told him it's okay to go. As hurtful as it was, I knew it was his time. I went home because it got late and my daughter was tired. I had my phone on loud after all. Soon as I got home, I clocked out immediately. I woke up to hear knocking on the door. No one ever knocked on our door, especially that early in the morning. I got up, checked, and no one was there. I then noticed I had about 4 missed calls, a few voice messages, and 2 texts. The first one read, "Is something wrong with your phone?" The second one read, "Your father has passed away." But how could I have missed this? Because I have a shit iPhone and it was on night mode. I didn't even know it had that feature. A feature that blocks out all calls from certain times at night till a certain time in the morning. I rushed to the hospital's mortuary and he was lying there. "Dad's inside," my brother says. I almost expected to see him alive. Instead, he was lying there lifeless. I swore I could have seen him breathing. There must have been a mistake. Sadly not. I spent a few days visiting him and getting him ready. I had a lot of alone time with him where I talked to him. We never really saw eye to eye, but we had a lot in common, so we had an odd connection. Love-hate relationship almost. I told him I forgave him for what he had done to me and my family, and I saw a tear roll down his face. After doing research, I found out it's normal for a corpse to expel liquids, but I'd like to think it goes deeper than that. Well, After that fearsome recollection of events and also my waterworks towards the end, I'll probably get to sleep easily. I've exhausted myself with this comment. Sorry. My college has a decently sized nature reserve. The biology and environmental students are usually there during the day along with the occasional hiker, and at night it's full of stoners and stargazers. There's rumors that it's haunted, and some people have claimed to have seen the ghosts of these two students who had hung themselves there in the trees. One night, my friend and I were walking back from a night hike to watch the supermoon. As you walk out of the preserve, there is a pond that has a long bridge over the middle, about 150 yards, that you have to cross to get back to the road. About halfway over, there's a little area that kicks out to the side where people can stand and not be in the way of people crossing. As we step onto the bridge, we catch two figures in the beam of my flashlight. Being a polite gent, I immediately switch it off to not blind them. My friend teasingly goes, "Wow, what an asshole shining that in people's eyes." And as we walk by, there is no one fucking there. There's no way they just walked ahead of us because the bridge is loud and creaky, and footsteps echo on the water. We look at each other freaked out as hell as both heard a long quiet chuckle coming from all sides, and then it went away. Nothing anyone can tell me will convince me that it wasn't those two ghost kids. It was the last day of my internship, and everyone had gotten a ride home while I waited for my parents. I was 15 at the time, and everyone else was a bit older and drove. Jim, a more strict and unsettling boss of mine, and Joe, a calmer, older, nicer one, both decided to stay and wait due to it being dark, and Jim decided that he felt something suspicious and wanted to wait with me. Joe agrees, and I stood on the corner with them waiting. After waiting about 10 minutes, a strange, rusty SUV pulls up with a tan, gray-haired, and bearded man inside. He rolls down his window and begins claiming he was my uncle, my relative, and he knew me, and that I should get in the car with him. Quite scary, both men turned to me with concerned face, knowing my mom was picking me up. I freaked out, froze, and kept shaking my head. He persisted for a solid 15 minutes. To this day, I still wonder why it took so long for my mom to get there. Then proceeded to make a U-turn and do the same thing. His license plate was too dim for us to see, and he drove away. That day ended, and it was horrifying by itself. A couple days later, however, I was walking home from my bus stop and saw the same car roll by me. I took out my phone and tried to take a picture but couldn't get one. To this day, it still creeps me out. I have a small business helping domestic users with IT issues. I get called to a house to sort the wireless ADSL, and there were 3 people there. A couple who met me and another guy sat bolt upright on the sofa, looking at the TV, which was switched off. Also, he was wearing a big puffy jacket in the middle of summer. So I get to work on the router and a couple are chatting with me. They are stood behind the sofa. I was just finishing up when something caught my eye. The guy mouthed the words, "Help me." I did a double take and he did it again. The couple were stood behind him and didn't see what he did. I was shocked and thought for a minute. When I finished the router, I stood up and looked at him and said, "Okay, no problem." I got paid, fled the house, and went straight to the police station. I never got called to court or heard any more about it, so it may have been a big joke. I can imagine them all falling about, laughing when I left.